the interesting thing about where this investment is happening and how it's happening and what's going on there is that this trend is mostly going to benefit regional areas, right? So in Australia, a country the size of the US, geographically, not in population, we've got a few major cities dotted around the nation, but really, aside from that, most the regional areas tend to not get as much focus. But what's happening right now is that there's going to be, hundreds of billions of dollars being pumped into green energy projects, and by nature, they're all going to be in regional areas because that's where the space is. That's where the resources are. They're the areas that need the biggest amount of transition. There's things like the Kurri Kurri battery plant in the Hunter region. That's the world's largest battery plant that's already being built. There's interestingly as well. So we were reviewing data on suburbs to identify the top 1% of suburbs nationwide, and there was a bunch of smaller regional towns which came up in our analysis, right? And when we looked at the data, we were like, oh my God, this is unreal. Like everything, all of our key indicators were just like bing, 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 like buy here right now. And we were like, what is going on? Like, because these are towns that are sort of maybe like 10,000 population or maybe a little less than 10,000 in population, that kind of thing. So a little smaller than we kind of might normally have looked at. And these are places like Gunnedah and Junee and Leeton, but they're just to name a few. There was actually quite a bunch of them. And then when we started digging in, because we were like, well, what's going on here? Because the data looked almost identical for all of these different satellite regional towns, It looked almost identical and almost identically amazing in every single one of them. The common thread between every single one of them is they all had renewable energy projects. And all of them had roughly the same ratio, as in like per capita spend. So the size of the project relative to the amount of people in the area. So all of the renewable energy projects were roughly the same size, and they were either solar or wind projects, right? So that was the common thread between all of them, and it was like, oh, that's really interesting, because what we could see in the data was a real economic shift and a demand shift in those locations, right? So, just jump in if I'm kind of running off at the gob, Gabby, and I'm going a little bit too fast on this.
I just love seeing the photos, particularly of like the solar farms that are coming up, like that these massive projects of just solar panels out like in regional areas, and it's amazing to think of what that's doing for both the local economy and then the national economy, but then also moving towards net zero. So I love seeing those photos.